Hey, vinyl community, Elliot here, Lazy Dogs Records, and I'm excited that we've got an interesting thread started. Alex at Motoric 247 started this experimental vinyl thread, it's called, and he's got 8 questions for us to answer. So I've been in kind of a rut. This is good to get out of the rut. I went through and had to think about my collection a little bit and process it a little bit and then start searching a lot. And I think I've come up with a way to answer these 8 questions by showing you what I think are some very interesting and in many cases experimental records. So the first one is to show an improvisational record, music that's improvisational. Well, of course, first you think of, I guess, jazz, but that's, I'm going to show you some jazz, but that's not my first thought when I think of improvisational music. My first thought is acoustic music, or bluegrass, or some close cousin to bluegrass, or something like that. So, Barron County from the Newgrass Revival. This is from 1979, and it is almost the original band, a different bass player, but he became a longtime bass player for them there. This is an excellent album with lots of jamming in there, improvisation. Sam Bush, of course, the founder of Newgrass Revival, and always known as a very, very great improvisational musician, and all the musicians he seems to surround himself with are as well. So if you're looking for some great improvisational music, I guess today we call it jamgrass. Jamgrass would be a good way to go. And this was from 79. Back in 79 they didn't call it that. Called it progressive bluegrass or newgrass. Band in no small part taking that from the band Newgrass Revival's name. Okay, number 2, an album with a Moog synthesizer in it, and here's a album from 2021, Billy Strings, and I believe it's called Revival. Renewal. It's called Renewal. Billy Strings. Billy Strings, of course, the excellent young mainly acoustic guitarist, and again in that kind of that jamgrass vein, I guess you would say. He on this album uses synthesizer. He plays it some on the recording, and he has somebody else that's playing it in some parts on it. So he's while he can be very, very traditional, and often is, he also can be very, very experimental, and his music shows a great improvisational and experimental element to it, a major element to it. One of the things I think that attracts people to his music. So Billy Strings, and Renewal is the name of that particular album, using a Moog synthesizer in there. And isn't that odd? It seems odd, but listening to the album, it doesn't seem out of place at all. Number 3, a field recording, or an album using field recordings from 1976, I believe. Country singer Bobby Bare, Hard Time Hungries, and this is a concept by Shel Silverstein, the great cartoonist, poet, songwriter. He didn't write all the songs on here, but it was his concept that Bobby Bare brought to life for him. And it is, they interlace the various songs about hard times, poverty, unemployment, being hungry, things like that, inflation, all that. They, between the songs, they've got interviews with just, people on the street, homeless people, or working class people that are struggling to get by. So it works really well. You don't see many, especially back then, many country music concept albums, and this is an excellent example of how you can do it right. Okay, drone sound. Okay, what's playing right now is what I chose for that. There Is No Other is the name of the album, Rhiannon Giddens. There Is No Other, and she is joined by, let's see, I'm having a hard time holding these up for y'all. There we go. Francisco Teresa. And this album was recorded in 2019, I believe it was, and it is full of, let me show you, her partner here, Francisco Teresa, is a Frenchman of Middle Eastern descent, I believe, and Rhiannon is a North Carolinian of mixed race. Her father's white, mother is African American, and Francisco is very schooled in the instruments of the Middle East, and you can see some of the instruments there. Rhiannon, of course, her background originally is in opera, and then in old-time music after graduating with a degree in opera. And let's see, I'll show you that. They use, she is proficient at the violin, the fiddle, and the banjo. She's playing oftentimes a minstrel era banjo replica, actually, nylon string. It gives it a very, very haunting drone-like feel. They don't use a lot of artists in this album, a lot of instrumentalists. It's mostly them. They've got one or two people that join them on some of the songs, some cellos, some accordion. It's really, if this isn't world music, I don't know what you could call it, or what you would call world music. But lots of droning sounds in here, using sometimes the fiddle, sometimes cello, sometimes even that there's actually a banjo they refer to as the drone banjo. And we generally think of drone holding one note, sustaining for a long, long, long time. At least that's what I think of. Oftentimes, though, the drone sound is not holding that note, it's playing the same note over and over again to give it that feel. Okay? But it's a great album. Check it out if you haven't. Let's see. Spoken word. Some of these words I can't speak today. This is from 1970 on a Douglas III release, The Last Poets. Some of you may know much more about this configuration of people. This is very kind of revolutionary, Black Power type poetry. It uses the N-word constantly, and it talks about revolution and things like that. So, like I say, it's from 1970. So it's an interesting recording, but you couldn't play it on YouTube. They wouldn't understand, even if they're using it to empower their people and themselves, not as derogatory term, but as turning it around and empowering it. But you can't explain that to YouTube, so I'm definitely not going to do a needle drop on that one. I'm not going to do needle drops in any of these, actually, because I know we'll keep this fairly short. So that was number 5, spoken word, and that was The Last Poets. And processed instrument or voice. I had a hard time with this one. I guess anytime you run anything through an amplifier, isn't it processed then? I don't know. So I'm not real clear on this. But I bought some albums from somebody online, Discogs, I guess, and they included this album they just threw it in there. Wasn't related to any of my other purchases, but it's autographed by Ian Ferguson, State of Gold. And I played this one time. It is not my cup of tea. A lot of processed vocals and instruments in here. You may know about this artist, and he may be a great experimental artist, but it was very, very foreign to me. Okay? And let's see. Number 7, artist on Nurse with Wound. I looked at the list. I think I saw about 3 who I could use, because those artists just are not in my wheelhouse at all. How about Captain Beefheart? Yeah, I know people that know me are going, Elliot Cruz has a Captain Beefheart album? Actually, I do. I've had it for a long time. Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band. This is Dawg at the radar station. I think it's from '83. Captain Beefheart. So I do have something from Nurse with Wound. How about that? All right. Toy instrument. This, I knew exactly what I was going to do on this one. Charlie Parker with orchestra. One Night in Washington. You jazz aficionados may well be familiar with this. 1958. They had scheduled to have Charlie Parker come in and perform with this jazz orchestra that played there in the D.C. area a lot, had a large following, and he had to cancel. And so they didn't. They said, we're going to go ahead with the show, but we're not going to publicize the show because Charlie Parker's not going to be able to be here, but we're just going to go ahead and play. We're going to do Charlie Parker music. Well, lo and behold, Charlie Parker shows up. And this album was released in 1982. He shows up with a plastic saxophone, and he plays everything that night. And he did all the solos and everything with a toy saxophone. They said one person there said you could see through it. It was plastic. So I'd call that a toy instrument. But in the hands of a master, you can do amazing things with a toy instrument, I guess. Okay, so I'll leave a link to Alex's original video for this. So it doesn't have to be avant-garde to be experimental. You know, there's lots of different types of experimental music. I hope I've shared some with you that you may not have been aware of before, or that you might show an interest in that you just never delved very deeply into. And I'll just say, everybody, remember to be kind to your neighbor, because we're all neighbors. Okay? Take care.